In my last video, I shifted to the AFC and took a look at the AFC West. Now I shift gears and get ready to take a look at what 2012 may have in store for the AFC South. The Jacksonville Jaguars in 2011 finished 5-11 and in third place in the AFC South. And the primary reason for that was their inability to move the ball on offense, particularly in the passing game, and to score points. They were one of the worst point-scoring offenses in all of the NFL and had the worst passing offense in the entire league. And that's saying something because the Denver Broncos had Tim Tebow at quarterback last year. That's how much Blaine Gabbert sucked last year, and that's how bad the Jacksonville Jaguars' passing attack was last year. Should be no surprise that Jack Del Rio was sent packing, and they've got a new head coach. They bring in Mike Mularkey, an offensive guy, to try and get something out of that Jacksonville Jaguars offense. Mularkey has some work ahead of him, needless to say. Part of the drama of the offseason has been Maurice Jones-Drew's holdout situation. He's in camp. It doesn't look like he'll start week 1, but you would assume he'll get a bulk of carries in week 1, and then he'll start to work himself back into shape. And he'll be the one consistent force in that offense. They drafted Justin Blackmon in the first round, traded up 2 spots to get the 5th overall pick to take him, which was absolutely the right decision. They needed talent at the wide receiver position, and Justin Blackmon was the best wide receiver in the 2012 draft class. So at least that was good. On the defensive side of the ball, the Jaguars for years seem to have been obsessed with trying to improve their pass rush. And no matter what they do, they still can't generate a consistent pass rush with their defense. They took Andre Branch from Clemson early in the draft. For some reason, took a punter in the 3rd damn round. But when you look at the Jaguars, they were actually, in spite of their inability to get consistent pass rush on opposing quarterbacks, had a pretty solid defensive performance. It kept them in some games and is a large reason why they even won 5 games to begin with. Because, yes, even with Maurice Jones-Drew in the backfield, Blaine Gabbert sucked that bad. When you look at this team in 2012, sure, the additions of a Justin Blackmon and a Laurent Robinson who came from the Cowboys via free agency should help provide some weapons in that passing game for Blaine Gabbert. The defense will probably play pretty well again, be among the top 10 or 12 defenses overall in the league, still struggle a little bit to get some pass rush on opposing quarterbacks. But the bottom line is this is about Mike Mularkey and his new regime trying to get as much as they possibly can out of a future bust of a first-round pick in Blaine Gabbert. I think Blaine Gabbert is the shits. He sucks. I can't believe any talking heads last year ever thought that this guy was even in the consideration for the number 1 overall selection. It just shows you sometimes how little the talking heads you see on TV actually watch film and actually pay the hell attention. Blaine Gabbert sucks. I think the Jaguars will suck this year. Their defense will be good. Their offense will have a couple of moments, but in general, Blaine Gabbert sucks. If you don't understand that by now, Blaine Gabbert sucks. The Jaguars will finish somewhere between 4-12, 5-11, and bring up the rear in the AFC South. As soon as you heard that Peyton Manning was actually going to miss some time in the 2011 season, you knew it could be a struggle for the Indianapolis Colts. When you found out that Peyton Manning was going to miss the entire season, you knew it was going to be a very long and very bad year for the Indianapolis Colts. And as valuable as Peyton Manning was to that team, make no mistake about it, there were other issues there that helped contribute to the Colts finishing 2-14 and getting the number 1 overall pick and ultimately winning the Andrew Luck sweepstakes. So gone is Coach Jim Caldwell, in his new coach Chuck Pagano. There are changes abound, and it all starts with the offense and number 1 overall selection, quarterback Andrew Luck from Stanford. He's got some big shoes to fill. He's replacing a franchise icon and one of the all-time greatest quarterbacks in NFL history in Peyton Manning. Not just any quarterback could step into that spot. But Andrew Luck seems to be the type of guy that possesses the right type of leadership, the right type of moxie, the right type of intangibles and self-confidence to be able to come in and do a good job of filling those awfully big shoes. When you look at the Colts offense, they surrounded Andrew Luck with some weapons in the draft in the offseason. They drafted Colby Fleener, his teammate from Stanford, Dwayne Allen, another tight end from Clemson, trying to copy that 2 tight end formula that you've seen work for several teams, most notably the New England Patriots. Drafting T.Y. Hilton in the 3rd round I thought was a great selection. Again, another weapon for an Andrew Luck to throw to. In the backfield, you've got a 2-headed tandem, I guess you call it, of Donald Brown and Delanie Carter. The Colts are hoping that those two can provide a thunder and lightning complement in that backfield. And it's time for Donald Brown to step up and play like a damn first-round pick, or he needs to get the hell out of town. On the defensive side of the ball, a new coach means a new defensive scheme. The Colts are going to run a 3-4. And it wasn't just that their offense was unable to score points and consistently move the ball in 2011. Their defense couldn't stop anybody either. That cover two's time had come and gone in Indy, and now with this 3-4, I'm very curious to see if they're going to see some improvements. And I'm curious to see if Dwight Freeney and Robert Mathis, and especially Jerry Hughes, are going to be able to adjust and play outside linebacker in the 3-4, play in space, and play from a different position after several years, in the case of Freeney and especially Mathis, of playing those outside edge rushers in a 4-3. Sometimes a defensive scheme change can bring some improved results. And I'm sure on offense they're going to have some improved results with Andrew Luck at the helm, because I think in a lot of ways his overall athleticism on the football field is underrated. People talk about RG3 being this great athlete. When you talk about from a pure football standpoint, Andrew Luck is a better pure athlete. He throws better on the move both to the right and the left side, and I think he's a better scrambler. He's better able to move his feet in a pocket. His footwork is superior. So I think when you look at the Colts as a team this year, I think it could be one of those things where, Luck may have his moments that he looks like a rookie, but he's going to have those other moments that he shows that he could potentially be a big-time quarterback down the road. He may be able to win some games with his feet, which I think some teams will sleep on his ability to scramble. They really will. I expect the Colts to come out and win 5, perhaps even 6 games in 2012. He'll get some help from guys, holdovers like Reggie Wayne and Austin Collie. He's got 2 tight ends with good athleticism. He's got an okay offensive line, nothing special. And if he gets anything out of Donald Brown and Delanie Carter, this is an offense that could at least put up some points, scare a couple of teams, and a defense that may be able, with the scheme change and with the different looks that they're going to bring, be able to win some games that maybe last year they weren't able to. So 5-11, 6-10, and third place in the AFC South, is what I expect for the Colts. The Tennessee Titans, in spite of some challenges, finished 9-7 in second place in the AFC South last year. A lot of credit has to go to Coach Mike Munchak for getting a lot out of this team, in spite of some struggles in certain areas. It shouldn't be a surprise, though, that the Jake Locker era in Tennessee is officially beginning in 2012. Hasselbeck did a nice job for a stretch of time last year, but he was a stopgap until they felt that Jake Locker was ready. And the organization and Coach Mike Munchak feels that Locker is ready, and you have to find out at some point. You took the guy 8th overall for a reason, apparently. On offense last year, they had games where they were all right. They could move the ball in the air somewhat effectively. But the one thing that was really surprising was their inability to move the ball on the ground. Chris Johnson had that ugly holdout situation last year in the offseason, and then once he finally got to the team and got back going, it took a long time for him to get to a rhythm, to the point where I don't ever really think he fully got a rhythm in 2011. It was almost a bit of a lost season for Chris Johnson. And for a team with Chris Johnson, you would expect them to be able to run the ball better than they did in 2011, but they struggled in that area, and that partially hurt their offense's ability to stay on the field and consistently put points up on the board on a week-in, week-out basis. The Titans defensively, solid, but not spectacular. Kind of what you come to expect out of a Tennessee Titans defense over the years. He really did. When you look at their changes in the offseason, obviously going to Jake Locker as quarterback is going to be a big change. You also have to look at Chris Johnson's going to be in camp. He's healthy. He apparently is right in the mind. So you would think, a bit of a resurgence from Chris Johnson in 2012, which will do nothing but help the Tennessee Titans offense, and in particular, provide a nice safety blanket and some protection for their young quarterback, Jake Locker. On the outside, Kenny Britt, who tore up his knee last year, will be back. He doesn't have much of a suspension, 1 game to serve, so he's a big-time weapon, and if he can come back from his knee injury, you take him along with guys like Damian Williams and first-round draft pick, who I really love, Kendall Wright from Baylor, and it looks like Locker's going to have some nice weapons to throw to on the outside. Defensively, they need a little bit more out of Derek Morgan and Akeem Ayers. This is a defense lost Cortland Finnegan out of the secondary, which hurts a little bit. But again, I would expect this defense to be solid, but not spectacular. I expect there to be some improvement on the offensive side of the ball, although there are going to be some growing pains with a young quarterback like Jake Locker. At least you can say one thing about Locker. If he struggles sometimes throwing the ball or he makes some bad decisions, he could potentially be the type of quarterback that makes some plays with his feet that make up for some of those mistakes. So I would expect the Tennessee Titans this year to finish somewhere around 8-8, maybe 9-7, and finish second place in the AFC South. Heading into 2011, the 10th season in that franchise's existence, the expectations were clear. Playoffs or Kubiak's fired. Playoffs or bust. And they responded. Sure, it helped once Peyton Manning went down with the season-ending neck injury, but the Houston Texans did what they had to do. They finished 10-6, won the AFC South, and even won a playoff game before eventually losing to the Baltimore Ravens in the divisional round. Now, as good as the 2011 season was for the Houston Texans, there still has to be that feeling of bitterness in the mouth of both the organization and the fans of the Texans, because they had big players like Mario Williams and Andre Johnson and Arian Foster go down with injuries at different times of the year, and Matt Schaub missed the last 6 games of the season and the playoffs due to injury. And when you look at this Texans team, for a while last year, they looked like they were one of the very best teams in all of football and a real legitimate threat to go to the Super Bowl. But they got derailed. They started off 10-3 and then lost their last 3 games before they did rally behind TJ Yates, won a playoff game against Cincinnati before, like I said, ultimately losing to Baltimore. 2012, first and foremost important thing for the Houston Texans is to get healthy. They need Matt Schaub to play a full season like he did in 2010. They need Arian Foster to be able to play 15 or 16 games. They need Andre Johnson to come back at full strength and be healthy and be the legit elite number 1 wide receiver that everybody knows he can be and he has been since basically he came out of Miami in 2003. On the defensive side of the ball, they lose DeMeco Ryans and Mario Williams, but the cupboard's not entirely bare in that 3-4 defense coached by Wade Phillips. But losing guys like that, even a guy like Williams who didn't play a ton last year, still does hurt. So you could potentially expect to see some slight decrease in performance in the Texans defense, but maybe not. Maybe other guys step into those voids and they don't skip a beat. And sometimes you see this in sports. When a team's star player leaves, the next season sometimes they have a better year because other guys step up and they play as a more cohesive unit. On the offensive side of the ball, they need their big 3 to be healthy. It's about keeping Schaub healthy, Foster healthy, Andre Johnson healthy. It's about Owen Daniels staying healthy all year and having another productive season at the tight end position. Another question for them, once you get past Kevin Walter, they really don't have a whole hell of a lot in the receiving corps. Who's going to step up and provide a legitimate threat in the slot in that Houston Texans offense? Because if they could find a number 3 wide receiver that can cause some damage over the middle or even deep down the field, the Houston Texans offense goes from being a very, very good offense to an incredibly explosive offense and maybe the best offense in the league, especially when you've got guys like Arian Foster and Ben Tate toting the ball in the backfield. When I look at 2012, I expect more of the same from the Texans in the sense that they're going to look like one of the best teams in football all year long. I expect guys like Schaub and Andre Johnson, and yes, even Arian Foster, to stay healthy the majority of the season. I think the Houston Texans are clearly the class of the AFC South. They're going to win something like 12 ball games. They're going to be banging it out for home field advantage in the playoffs, and I think they're a real threat to go to the Super Bowl. Let me know what you expect out of the AFC South and if anybody's going to surprise or disappoint in this division. Next up, I'll take a look at the black and blue division of the AFC North.